Welcome back, everybody. Luna Classic has been showing some life recently, and it's really due to the fact that there have been some major updates regarding the Luna Classic burning cycle, and then also regarding the project itself and its roadmap. So I want to dive into that and give you guys the most recent update around Luna Classic. So let's dive right in. The first thing I want to note here is that we're seeing some serious burns from groups like Lunatics Token burning 250 million, Luna Classic DAO burning 4 million, and Save the Moon IO burning 4.6 million with a second burn of 2% tax. So Luna Classic was up, pretty decently, but we're going to go into some price action here at the end of the video. But that's been pretty impressive to see it bounce back just in the last 24 hours. Now, looking at the total amount burned, we have about what looks to be 2 billion, approaching 2 billion supply out of that 6.9 trillion total supply for Luna Classic. So still quite a ways to go, but we're seeing more and more being burned month over month. And we're going to get into what that actually looks like and breaking it down from each burner. So good to keep track of it right there. The other thing that I want to note is the actual breakdown of Luna Classic burners. So we're seeing a high concentration up here at the top between the top 4 wallet holders. So we have the Lunatics Token wallet, the MEX CEX Centralized Exchange wallet, the Luna Classic DAO wallet, and the Binance Users wallet. Now, this is, in itself, it's great to see a lot of Luna Classic tokens burned. They have to get basically the majority of these things burned if Luna Classic is going to go to $1, some crazy price like that, right? They're going to need a lot to be burned, maybe get down to that 10 billion, 20 billion supply, something more reasonable. But the one thing I want to note here that it's not necessarily concerning, but I think longer term it could become a concern is what you're going to notice here is these, top 4 are holding way more than the bottom 4 do in terms of burn volume. And what's concerning about that is that eventually we're going to have to see this more distributed as we get down the line for Luna Classic. So right now, if you look closely, right, the Binance users wallets at 123 million Luna Classic burned, while the next closest is just about half that with the KuCoin users burning 65. So now that's definitely something to be on the lookout for. It's going to be interesting to see if more and more people can kind of step up to the plate, more whales can be burning. And that's really clear in this visual, right? I mean, you have the top 3 essentially burning, more than 75% of the entire burn supply, right? And I think that'll continue to be the trend. Obviously, it's just where the Luna Classic tokens lie and who can afford to burn them and who can be burning them at that high rate to stay in these leaderboards. But I think this is something that we'll definitely have to watch, because as we see more and more Luna Classic being burned through the next year or so, more than a year, it's going to be extremely important that we see more and more folks burning millions of Luna as opposed to just the top 4 wallets that hold Luna Classic. Now, going into more of a timeline here, right? Let's get reasonable about when Luna Classic could actually benefit from these burns, when we could see, solid price action. I think this is a pretty good calculation. So we've been seeing about 100 million Luna Classic transaction volume per day, give or take, right? It's been more than that. It's been up to 700, 800 billion. We've also seen, 100 billion, less than 100 billion. So taking that conservative estimation of volume, saying with that 1.2% tax that has been implemented for the burn, gives about 1.2 billion Luna Classic burn per day, about 438 billion. Now, thinking about that, we have a 6.9 trillion worth of volume out there. This will take multiple years. And so I think that that's one of the things that gets lost in kind of the Twitter hype, just the general crypto altcoin hype, right? Is that people don't understand that this is going to take years to actually bring it down to a reasonable volume, right? Something between 20 and 40 billion, let's call it, right? Not something like 100 billion that's just out of control, where it's just so many tokens like it is right now at 6.9 trillion. It's almost ridiculous, right? So definitely not saying bearish, but I'm just saying that this is an expectation that needs to be set, where it's going to take years for Luna Classic to reach a reasonable supply level where it makes, something that's a little bit easier to speculate on. It can hold some sort of legitimate value. So that's definitely something we just want to set the expectation there and keep track of. Now, the other thing I will say that has been super bullish for Luna Classic in the future is that the dev team is actually working pretty hard. So here's some of their latest updates, and we're just going to point out a couple points here. So first of all, their Haxion chain is basically going to run its first ever test transaction, a test contract call between Terra Luna Classic and Polygon. And so this is actually going to allow for dApps to be made on Luna Classic, which is huge, right? I mean, other than the fact that people like to buy it to speculate, if people can actually use it, it's going to bring more volume to Luna Classic. It's going to intensify the burns coming in and hopefully, gear that up and make that go faster than the couple-year timeline that we laid out, right, just previously. So it'll be really, really cool to see what kind of dApps come on. Do they get usage or not? And they're about 90% completion of being ready for the testnet for those dApps to be incorporated. Now, the next level is the fact that I want to focus on their project migration. So they actually do have quite a few projects that, if you remember when the whole Luna Classic thing went down just in May, there were projects that basically said, hey, we'll come over, and there are now actively, out of all those that have voted, there are going to be 33 that are in active migration or near completion. So starting off when the chain is officially live with that Haxion chain, we're going to see 33 projects ready to go and live. And so that's really, really exciting to see. It's not, you see a lot of people out there saying Terra Luna Classic is completely dead. That's definitely not the case. It obviously has a lot of work to be done, a lot of headway to be made in the next couple of years, but people are building and have built on Terra Luna and Terra Luna Classic. So now we're seeing some of that come to fruition here just in the last couple of days. So that's kind of what I want to do for news. And now I want to hop into some chart analysis. So if we can kind of take a look at where Luna Classic may be going, obviously we have the two proposals that have passed. First of all, well, the one that has passed basically saying the 1.2% burn tax, and another on the table for the validator and staking model. But now it's going to be interesting to see what kind of price action this leads to, right? And so initially back here in late June, we had a falling wedge completed around the 15th of July. So a little over 3 weeks it took to complete. We had somewhat of a breakout here, but it wasn't necessarily convincing because we couldn't get above that, 00011 marker right here where this resistance is. And so we actually got rejected there and came back and consolidated again. And now we're looking at somewhat of a pretty heavy consolidation period right between, this area, which has kind of been our resistance. So over the past, 17 days, give or take, we've seen, and actually more than that, 17, 19 days, we've seen some heavy consolidation among this resistance. And so now we're just looking for some sort of break to take us back to the upside outside of this consolidation. You could make the case for a double bottom here. That's kind of stretching it, but if we were to have a double bottom play out, you'd be looking at this 00011 or 00012 area up here as our breakout target. So just above this past resistance level would be where we would like to look at if a double bottom were actually to play out. Now I'm going to give this with the caveat of it's really hard to do chart analysis on a token like Luna Classic, given there's such a high supply. There is a ton of volume, I will say that, but given that there's so much supply currently circulating, it's really, really difficult to understand, when it's going to pump, and also the fact that it's so concentrated within, 10 wallets hold most of Luna Classic, right? So it's really kind of hard to anticipate when we're going to see, something like this where we ran, 100 and almost 200% in just a couple of days, or whether we're going to have, something like this where we collapsed, 200% in a week, right? So it's really hard to say where we're going to be headed next, but I'd say in the near term, we're likely looking at more consolidation here between basically right under our resistance, right in this area, and in between that support at 0009, 0010, right there, and then obviously right here at that 00011 mark. That's kind of been the key level to break. So if we're somehow able to, stay alive here in this window, consolidate a little bit, there's a good chance with some good burning news or some heavy whale buys, maybe we get a breakout here and continue to run and then come back, test this, and maybe go again. But at the same time, we have a lot playing out. There's so many factors with Luna Classic, and then also on the macro side. But hopefully this gave you guys a good idea on the burn update, gave you guys a little bit of a chart background, and hopefully it was helpful. So let me know if you want me to cover any other projects in the comments, and we'll see you in the next one. Bye-bye.